India at 75 will look back on the year 2020 and will not only remember it as the year of the global pandemic, but also as the year in which the world appeared to be at war with itself. Today, we are living in a society which is not at peace with itself. All round us, we experience aggression of newer and newer variety, be it road rage, cybercrime, new and new forms of crimes are coming forward every day. Have we ever stopped to think why? Every aggression has a genesis somewhere in the psyche of a person. But why? We need to find answers and think very deeply as we as a society would like to have a peaceful society when India is at 75. A happy, peaceful, inclusive society as we move ahead. Now, our children today will be adults or sub-adults at 75, and children are the most important resource of any country. These children will be leading the country. They are our future and mankind's future, and therefore our constitution has many important provisions for protecting the rights of children. These rights are of survival, protection, development, and participation. A child in India is a citizen of India and enters adulthood at the age of 18 years. All these rights come into play in various stages of a child's life. Many laws have been enacted to protect these rights as the child, due to its vulnerability and being totally dependent on adults, is unable to protect its rights. But often these rights are violated with disastrous consequences, and therefore which leads to upheaval in society, which leads to violence in society, and it leads to a lot of very antisocial activities, which we can today see all round. The NCRB, which is the keeper of records of crime, indicates that the NCRB data indicates that from 2009, crime against children increased rapidly. What can be the reason? We need to go into it. Maybe it was because digital technology, smartphones were in the hands of most people who were not using it for the right purpose. But whatever may be the reason, one can only surmise till some research is done. It indicates that our society is not valuing its children. And when we look at the corresponding data of whether these people were prosecuted, people who abused children or who were violent towards children, including their own family, we find that not enough is being done by society and the institutional system. But when a child experiences violence, multiple factors come into place. And what happens? The child is left alone. If it is in the child's house or nearby community, the children tend to seek support from unknown places. When society fails them, they turn to they run away. They start doing all kinds of things. They may also turn to crime when they can. What most people don't realize is that abusing a child leaves a permanent mark on the child, hampering the development of the child's full potential. And as we go back, children are our natural resource. They are the people who will lead the country forward. And therefore, if a child's potential is hampered, the country loses a lot because we have lost that potential. Violence in childhood can be therefore deeply destructive, and the damage goes beyond immediate trauma and fear, extending through many aspects of a child's life, affecting his or her education, health, and restricting its future opportunities, the child's future opportunities. Violence can lead to depression and behavioral problems, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, eating disorders, and these impact on the mental health and can make young people more vulnerable to substance abuse and poor reproductive and sexual health. Another consequence which we are not realizing is poor educational achievement. Children with a history of maltreatment may have impaired mental well-being that affects their academic performance. The impacts of childhood violence extend well into adulthood. In fact, I don't think it ever goes away. As chairperson NCPCR, many aged people used to meet me and with tears in their eyes would discuss their childhood traumas, the abuse they suffered at the hands of the adults. And therefore, I feel many social, health, and economic problems can be traced back to childhood experiences. Young people who have experienced sexual abuse often feel shame and blame themselves and can be at a greater risk of repeated suicide attempts. Recently, a spate of suicides by renowned people has shaken the society and started this dialogue on mental health. And a lot of it can be because of what happened to them when they were growing up and the loneliness they must have experienced. That kind of loneliness doesn't leave you ever. Then, further, children who bully at school, they again are more likely to be violent later in life. Adults whose health and education have been compromised by childhood violence may also struggle to find secure employment. Violence in childhood can be transmitted through generations, which is such a pity because many researchers have shown that if a child experiences violence within the family, it copies that behavior when it becomes an adult. And we all know it. And we keep saying it is in the family, it runs in the family. Therefore, violence becomes. Children can be exposed to violence at every stage of their growth. They are, however, experienced differently by boys and girls. These exposures through stages of childhood expand from home to school to community and constitute both physical as well as emotional abuse. But beyond human costs, there are also financial consequences. It has been estimated that the annual costs of physical violence, sexual and psychological violence against children are 2 to 5% of global GDP. Such a big loss it is to society if we cannot protect our children, which we are duty bound both by law and by convention to protect our children. Now, I would like to also point out the various stages of violence experienced by children when they are at the prenatal and birth within, say, house, they remain in the house. What do children witness? They also witness sex selective abortion. They witness intimate partner violence. And whenever this abortion takes place, the anguish of the mother remains. We are having so many cases of children who are born with neurodevelopmental disorders. The number of autistic children is increasing. The reason can be traced out. We need to do more research on these factors. The wombs of these mothers carry the trauma forever. This is my feeling. I mean, I feel that the child that is coming next will know the trauma that has been faced by the mother when she had to undergo abortion to get rid of the girl child for no rhyme or reason. Then a child between 0 to 4 years, again, faces violence in the home. It witnesses domestic violence. It faces violent disciplining at home. Often the parents or the care provider violently discipline the child that the child needs hospitalization. They also feel neglect, especially in the case of the girl child, and of course may be witness to homicide or experience homicide. We have that case of that adopted child who was left to die by the foster parent. I think it happened in USA. And this is, I mean, think of what the other children must have thought of it, of this behavior of the parents. A lot of violent disciplining is in the form of corporal punishment, and this people think is okay to discipline the child, but the extent of corporal punishment and forms of corporal punishment disciplining has a very bad effect on the emotional well-being of the child, and there are other ways of disciplining a child. Then when the child moves from the home to the school, that is middle childhood, say about 5 to 9 years, it starts school. Again, the child continues to experience violence because of various reasons. At home, disciplining for homework not done, corporal punishment at school for inattentiveness or for other reasons, may also be witnessing side-by-side domestic violence, may be experiencing bullying by peers at school, and of course, physical fights and sexual violence. Now, you'd think a child is very young, between 5 to 9, to experience sexual violence, but it is happening. And as chairman NCPCR, we had several cases of children as small as 4 years indulging in sexual violence with their peers. And I won't blame the child. Either the child had seen, was replicating some kind of behavior that the child had seen. So I won't really say it was a case of, I would say, active violence. But then we did have cases of older children, older boys, abusing younger boys. And there was a very famous case in which the child was knifed also. And we had to take it up very seriously. So now you can see if these children who have undergone this kind of trauma or who have perpetrated this trauma, what kind of adults they'll become. And mind you, the examples I'm quoting are not of people belonging to the to the economically weaker section. They belong to privileged backgrounds. And therefore, taking action against them also was quite a task because there were pressures of and counter pressures. Then coming back to early adolescence, say 10 to 14 years, where the child moves from home, school to community. Again, this continues, the violence continues because we are tolerating a lot of violence in the childhood of children. The child, especially the girl child, and smaller boy children face sexual violence, bullying peers at school. They have physical fights at school. And again, that domestic violence so continues because it is in the house. Nothing can be done about it, and it is accepted by a lot of people as the norm. Now, this violence, what happens when children find the atmosphere at home and in school intolerable? They leave their homes. The boys come on the streets, they run away, and they join gangs, or if they commit petty crimes, they are picked up and they are then picked up by gangs and they are stigmatized and targeted also by various groups. The girls get into unsavory relationships and often end up in institutional homes or get trafficked. Recently, Young Lives did a study and of girls who had become pregnant and were in institutional homes, and almost everybody spoke of the sadness in their house, the domestic violence they had experienced, the kind of unhappy situation that was in the home, and therefore they got into, as I said, unsavory relationships, and they ended in the institutional homes when they became pregnant or there was a complaint. And some of them were also trafficked and then entered institutional homes. In fact, it ending up in the institutional home they felt was the best thing that happened to them, because for the first time they had a safe environment, a safe place, and people with whom they could talk as peers without getting abused, without getting kicked, without getting ill treated. Then again, this kind of violence continues, only the scene changes, because late adolescence, early marriage of girl child, you have here they suffer intimate partner violence, sexual violence, physical violence, homicide, you name it. The child has already become an adult, and especially this child marriage places so much of responsibility on both the girl child as well as the boy child. The girl child, because she's not fit for pregnancy, she's not fit for, she's still a child and yet is expected to handle all kinds of relationship problems, all kinds of issues, and the boy child also is expected to handle adult responsibilities for which the child is not yet fit, and therefore they they suffer so much in the consequence, and we are also depriving our children of a happy childhood where they can learn, play, grow. Children also suffer violence on account of disability, appearance, if sexual orientation, or because if their parents are infected, say with HIV, they get stigmatized, status, racial, ethnic, religious identity, you name it, and the child becomes the butt of ridicule. This emotional violence leaves a mark on people. Now, therefore, we have to think of protecting children from violence, and this violence has to be understood in a much as a much broader obligation for state and society. Violence is not a private matter that should be left to the families to resolve, but it is a matter of human rights that the state has to resolve and enforce. We as a society should step in and ensure that the child is entitled to the rights, is entitled to all those rights which our beautiful constitution has given to that society. And therefore, India at 75, if we want a more peaceful society, we must start with our children. The time has come when we must end violence in childhood. that is faced by our children in their everyday lives and relationships in their homes, schools, communities. The joyful experience of childhood should not be darkened by aggression and fear. Violence in childhood can be ended. I am very sure of it if we all make an effort. So many new programs have started. We started the Accessible India program when I was Secretary, Department of Disability, where it brought a kind of an awakening that disabled have rights and we have to make a society which is accessible and inclusive for them. And therefore, violence in childhood, if today we start, then by 75, it will be a beautiful, peaceful society, a much more loving society, a much more growth oriented society. Remember this 2 to 5% loss in GDP. If we ensure that this loss is not there, because we have identified the reasons for this loss, think of the economic benefits that we will get and think of how much improvement there would be in our society when the wants of every person is met and the society is more at peace with itself. All of us are important stakeholders, and we must be conscious of the fact that we hold the destiny of a child and society in our hands. I'm wishing the organizers all the best for this seminar and making all of us think about what India will be at 75. Thank you very much.